Thank you, Bernie. I do want to say for the record, the meals were very nutritionally sound. So that was perfect. Yes, lots of good fiber. We're going to be talking about that soon. So I want to say it's an honor for Kylie and I to be here presenting today. Gluckstein and Associates were one of the first personal injury law firms to recognize the importance that nutrition can play in rehabilitation, enhancing mental and physical resilience, as well as emotional well-being and long-term health for both clients and caregivers. And they have been incredibly supportive to Kylie and I over many, many years. So thank you, Bernie, Charles, and Diane for having us here today. Thank you. So thank you, Bernie, for the introduction. I won't talk too much about my background. Primarily right now, I work as a nutritionist with people with spinal cord injuries and brain injuries. So between my professional skills in life and living with a disability for 38 years now, I certainly have had a lot of experience and exposure to compassion fatigue. And I'm so pleased to be here and be part of this presentation and this conference today. It's so, so important. Thank you.
Right, and I'm not going to go on about myself either, but one of the things I approached Gluckstein about was I had seen Jo at nutrition school, but we didn't actually know each other. But I wanted to connect with her because my nephew had become a quadriplegic when he was 1.5 years old due to medical malpractice. And I wanted to connect with Jo and learn more about her experience and nutrition knowledge on the subject. And we both realized there wasn't much information out there on nutrition and spinal cord injury. So we applied for a grant in the States to research and write a book on nutrition and spinal cord injury. And that was with the Paralyzed Veterans of America. And it was quite funny when we were writing the book, we were probably the most unhealthiest we've ever been. I'd turn up to Jo's house with venti lattes from Starbucks, copious amounts of Lindt chocolate that got us through the book. But we're very lucky too because Gluckstein sponsored us to publish the book, and we really appreciate that. And from that, we were part of presentations in the States and in Canada, and also research projects as well.
Okay, so today, in order to explain the role of nutrition in compassion fatigue, Kylie and I want to give you a really strong understanding of the connection that stress has on cortisol, digestion, and blood sugar dysregulation, and how all of these can play a role in the multitude of symptoms associated with compassion fatigue. Then we are going to provide you with evidence-based nutritional strategies and recommendations, both foods and supplements, to mitigate the negative effects that stress has and help fuel your resilience as healthcare providers. Okay, so you might be wondering, what does nutrition have to do with stress and compassion fatigue? It actually has a lot to do with it. But in order to fully understand this relationship, we have to briefly explain how stress impacts all body systems and why it has such a wide-reaching negative effect, both physically and mentally. So this next slide, I'm sure we can all relate to, been there, maybe on a daily basis. So moving here to the adrenal glands. I want to talk about the adrenal glands because I'm going to be talking about them quite a bit over the next 15 minutes. We have 2 adrenal glands. They are located on each kidney, and they are the key organ that is responsible for managing stress as they stimulate and release stress hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline. We need these stress hormones in short bursts for survival. They're critical. But if you are living in a state of chronic stress, perhaps by managing caregiving responsibilities at home or at work, too much cortisol, too much adrenaline, if it's released in the body every single day, it wreaks havoc on your system. And here's how. Traditionally, when we talk about the human body, we like to break it down into manageable, individual, isolated systems, such as the endocrine system, which is what the adrenal glands are part of, or the nervous system, or the immune system, or the digestive system. And while looking at the body as these collection of systems, it makes it easier to understand them, but we know the body doesn't actually function this way. It functions as one entity. And these individual systems, in reality, every single day communicate, interact, and influence other systems in the body. As such, dysfunction in one system, for example, dysfunction in the endocrine system, from too much stress, overstimulation of those adrenal glands, over-releasing cortisol and adrenaline, what that does is it has the capability of influencing the nervous system. This then can translate into neurological or behavioral disorders, maybe like depression, or it can influence the immune system and weaken it considerably. So this is how stress can contribute to the development of so many conditions associated with compassion fatigue. Now I'm going to throw it over to Kylie, and she's going to dive more into detail and explore the nutritional's role in managing these effects.
So first of all, Joe talked about when we are stressed, we release adrenaline and cortisol. So adrenaline is short-lived in the body, but when we have, and we need cortisol as well, but when we have chronic, prolonged stress, we're producing a ton of that cortisol, and large amounts and chronic amounts that can cause a number of problems in the body. And this is just a short list. So first of all, it can actually impact the way we eat. So it can increase our appetite and increase our carb cravings. In fact, sometimes when we have low serotonin, it actually can cause those carb cravings to occur. If someone's in trauma, like I know there's a lot of people here that are in the MVA world, when we have too much stress, our muscles and bones break down. So if you're someone recovering from a car accident or trauma or something like that, then having that high stress levels are really going to impact your recovery. It can impact your metabolism and your growth hormone. So it can really contribute to those extra pounds being put around at the midline. It can disrupt your sleep. And sleep's so important because that's when your body goes into repair and recovery mode, when all those good hormones are being made, other things are being remanufactured, and things like that. It's responsible for that nice tire around our belly as well. It can cause high cholesterol and triglycerides, and even increase the risk of blood clots. It can impact brain fog, contribute to memory issues, and can even contribute to brain shrinkage. It's a big one for insulin resistance and can elevate blood sugar levels, which again can fuel inflammation, which can fuel a lot of those problems even further. It can impact our hormones in relation to estrogen and testosterone. And as Joe was saying, it can compromise our immune system. So we're often getting sick and ill a lot more than the average person. It can contribute to headaches, mood swings, anxiety, depression. It can give us that puffy, flushed face. It can really cause that afternoon fatigue slumps. I find like with naturopath doctors, they do cortisol testing. So our cortisol should be the highest in the morning and go down in the evening. So if people have a real hard time getting up in the morning, that is because they may have low cortisol then. And if they're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, that can be because of cortisol, high cortisol. So their cortisol rhythm is out of whack. And it can contribute to digestive problems as well. So recommendations for high cortisol, what can we do to help bring that down or bring that into balance? So our adrenals rely on certain vitamins and minerals, and they get chewed up a lot quicker in the body. And vitamin C is one of them. In fact, our highest amount of vitamin C is actually in our brain because of its neuroprotective properties. But our adrenals really rely on that vitamin C as well. Now, vitamin C is water soluble, so it gets flushed out of the body quite quickly. So we need to be fueling our body with that vitamin C quite regularly. Now, vitamin C rich foods, everyone thinks are oranges, lemons, limes, but green and red peppers, broccoli, kale, strawberries, and cantaloupe are all really high in that vitamin C. And I think lunch had a ton of that going on, so that was great. We want to look at supplementing with vitamin C as well. So 1,000 milligrams a day is a great start, and you want to be doing divided doses throughout the day. Vitamin C supplementation has actually shown that can alleviate high cortisol caused by chronic stress. So there is research obviously behind this as well. My lips are joining, I need to take it. So we also want to bring in the B vitamins as well. B vitamins get chewed up a lot quicker in the body. So we need to make sure that we're getting enough of that as well. It's a coenzyme required for energy production. So we rely on those B vitamins to break down our carbs, fats, and protein. So foods high in B vitamins are your avocados, your legumes, and oats. And especially with a lot of our clients too, like especially with the price of food, it's so hard to get nutrient-dense foods, but legumes is a great way. It's high in protein, fibers, complex carbs, and it's high in those B vitamins. Oats are great because you can have them like overnight oats in the morning for breakfast. So there's research to show that supplementing with a B complex, because the B vitamins like to be absorbed together, can really help manage symptoms of anxiety, stress, and depression. So it'd be good to supplement with a B complex as opposed to individual dosing. So we're looking at about 50 milligrams a day. You really want to focus on magnesium. So about a third of Canadians are magnesium deficient, and the broccoli that we eat today is not the same broccoli that our grandparents ate. There's just definitely less nutrients in the food that we consume now. But also too, when we're stressed and anxious, we're chewing up that magnesium a lot more quicker. But I love magnesium, and I give that pretty much to almost all my clients because it's such an anti-stress, chill out mineral, helps with muscle spasms, mood, sleep, constipation. But also too, not only is it hard to get enough in our food, but we also lose it in so many different ways as well. So the way we process our food, we lose magnesium there. Antacids, diuretics, caffeine, which is such a big staple in the Western diet. Stress and alcohol also impact the absorption of magnesium. And a study of adults with mild to moderate depression for 6 weeks showed that taking magnesium made improvements in their depression and anxiety symptoms. So again, foods high in magnesium are also high in the B vitamins, which is great. So avocados, legumes, oats, almonds, spinach, mushrooms, all really good. And you want to be mindful of the type of magnesium you're getting, because magnesium citrate is more we give to people with constipation because that relaxes the bowels. Magnesium malate is more for muscles. So we want to focus on magnesium bisglycinate because that's the one that really starts to chill us out. And you're looking at about 200 to 400 milligrams of that. And we can't forget vitamin D. Again, a lot of Canadians are deficient in vitamin D, about 32%, and that goes up to 40% in the winter. And that's why we also have to get charged when we get our vitamin D blood work, because it's anticipated that a lot of us are deficient. So vitamin D is really good for mood, for sleep, for pain, for depression, even blood sugar balance and immune system. So it ticks off a lot of those boxes when people are struggling with anxiety, burnout, compassion fatigue, and stress. And there's studies to show, and this was done at Hamilton Health Sciences, that the lower the vitamin D level someone has, the greater the chance they are of having depression. So sometimes, and research also shows that sometimes when people have been antidepressant resistant, that supplementing with a vitamin D has helped offset that. The problem also, our best source of vitamin D is from the sun, and obviously coming from New Zealand to Canada, it's just like I really don't see that as much as I used to. And the other thing is we now cover up when we're in the sun. So we're out there with our sunblock and our hats and our shades, but we need to get that sun exposed to our skin without sunblock for our sun to interact with the skin and our cholesterol to make vitamin D. So that has the best half-life in the body, and we really want to be getting out there and sunbathing in exposed skin. It's really hard to get vitamin D from food sources, so it is one of those staples that people should be supplementing with. I know standard practice is 1,000 IUs, but I mean, I was taking 3,000 IUs and I was still at the low end of normal. So we suggest starting at about 2,500 IUs to get those levels up, but it is good to get your blood test done because you may need to be doing a lot more than that. And we've all heard of adaptogens. So adaptogens help to regulate cortisol and manage our stress resilience. There's a number of adaptogens out there like ashwagandha, Siberian ginseng, and even some of those like mushrooms as well, lion's mane. But I wanted to touch on Siberian ginseng. So this is an adaptogen herb that can really help us to cope with stress. You can take it in a tea form, powder, pill, and it really helps to regulate the mechanisms in the adrenal gland to control the cortisol. So it really helps with that severity of that fight-flight response, and helps with the body's short-term and long-term response to stress. So again, there's clinical studies to show that Siberian ginseng can really help to significantly reduce those feelings of stress and anxiety. Now I'm going to pass it over to Jo to talk about digestion.
Okay, I mentioned a few minutes ago how stress can cause dysfunction in the endocrine system and then influence other systems, and this includes digestive system. So why is this important for us here, talking about compassion fatigue? Your digestive system is the foundation of good health. If you are not breaking down, absorbing, and/or eliminating your food properly, it will impact all of your body systems and contribute to several symptoms of compassion fatigue, including low energy. And we've talked a lot about and heard a lot about low energy and fatigue today. So just for an example, if you are not eliminating regularly, perhaps you're chronically constipated, when matter builds up in your gut, toxins are created, and they are then reabsorbed into your bloodstream. They must be detoxified, but when they're circulating through your bloodstream, it can contribute to mental and physical fatigue. And there's one toxin in particular, it's called skatol, and it's produced from putrefaction of proteins in your gut, and it can actually suppress your nervous system, again, leading to fatigue. So this is how stress can impact digestion and why it's so important that we have a really good functioning digestive system. So when you have chronic stress, though, it really impacts overall digestion. What stress can do is it lowers the production of stomach acid in your gut, which is critical for the breakdown and absorption of minerals and proteins. And if you're not absorbing these well enough, it's going to affect all body systems. The other thing that stress does is it makes your digestive enzymes less effective. Digestive enzymes are created, produced, and released from your pancreas. They help digest fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. But stress and the release of stress hormones like cortisol, it actually causes acidification of your tissues, inflammation. And when our tissues are more acidic and inflamed, it actually reduces the effectiveness of those digestive enzymes, which means you're not breaking down, absorbing your nutrients as well. So some of the common symptoms of insufficient stomach acid and insufficient digestive enzyme activity are indigestion, bloating, gas, burning sensations, discomfort after eating. Stress also disrupts your gut microbiome by reducing beneficial bacteria like lactobacillus and increasing pathogenic bacteria like H. pylori and lowering overall bacterial diversity in your gut. Research shows that good bacteria in your gut helps to better manage depression, anxiety, stress, and sleep. How does it do this? What's the connection? 90% of our serotonin, which is our happy hormone, is produced and stored in our guts. So you want your gut to be really healthy in order to produce serotonin, which is going to help with mood, sleep, and pain, including pain. The other thing, similarly, is that 50% of our dopamine is made in the gut. And dopamine helps with motivation, just getting up and doing everything we need to do every day. Gut microbes also help produce GABA. GABA is the brain's main calming neurotransmitter, which we need when we're stressed out. And studies demonstrate people with depression and anxiety show increased levels of bad gut bacteria and less of the healthy gut bacteria. And people with better mental health tend to have higher concentrations of the good gut bacteria. So here are 3 recommendations that you can implement to support your digestion on a daily basis. Number 1, ensure adequate fiber intake. So fiber is the undigestible matter in plant foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. The diversity in the gut microbiome is based on a variety of high fiber foods in a person's diet. And one study found that the bacterial composition of your gut can rapidly be altered with dietary changes, both good and bad. So if you're eating a lot of junk food, you're going to get more of that bad bacteria. But similarly, if you improve your diet, you're going to get more healthy gut bacteria, and it can happen quite quickly. So that's the good news. Another study found that eating 4 extra portions of fruits and vegetables can boost people's mental health. So what is a serving, a portion of fruits and vegetables? Really, it's like a handful. So 2 extra pieces of fruit, maybe 2 handfuls of spinach at lunch can get you those extra 4 portions during the day and boost your overall mental health. I mentioned earlier that research has shown that good gut bacteria has a marked effect on GABA levels in the brain, and this can really help reduce anxiety and elevate mood, okay? Bad news is we're not getting enough fiber. Studies show that 94 to 98% of Canadian men have an insufficient intake of fiber. 79 to 96% of Canadian women have an insufficient intake. So the women are doing a little better, but not by much. We all need to improve our fiber intake. And eating unhealthy foods, highly processed foods, fried foods, feeds the bad bacteria in your gut and can actually cause pro-inflammatory markers such as cytokines that actually destroy serotonin in your body, and that's the happy hormone. So there's the connection with fiber and all the difference it can make in your system and how you're feeling and functioning. So here's some tips to increase fiber. Instead of drinking fruit juice, eat whole fruits with all the fiber in there. Replace all your white bread, white pasta, white rice with whole grain versions, the brown rice, the whole grain pastas and breads. Snack on raw vegetables or nuts, which have lots of fiber in them and protein. And substitute legumes for meat a few times a week. It's pretty simple to get the fiber increased by implementing these things on a regular basis. Okay, number 2, what you can do to help support your digestive system. If you have chronic indigestion, particularly if it's associated when you are very, very stressed out, you may want to consider taking digestive enzymes. I talked about our digestive enzymes being produced and released in the pancreas. Certain fruits also have natural plant enzymes, particularly pineapple and papaya. The enzymes in those fruits are isolated, put into capsules, and they help break down your food and, even more important, absorb those nutrients. So if you take 1 or 2 of these capsules with your main meals, it is remarkable how quickly it can relieve your indigestion, gas, and bloating. And if I'm having a dinner party and I'm serving a lot of meat and cheese, I actually will put digestive enzymes on people's table servings, and people are amazed, like how much better they feel. They're not all heavy afterwards. They really do work. If you go to a health food store and you want to get some digestive enzymes, look for ones that contain these 3 basic enzymes: amylase, protease, and lipase. And I will say one cautionary note: if you have an ulcer, skip taking these enzymes because they will irritate the ulcer. Okay. The third thing you can do to really support your digestive system every day is increase probiotics, which are good bacteria. They are essential to optimal digestion, and it's so easy to do. Eat kefir or Greek plain yogurt for breakfast or as a snack. Eat fermented vegetables, sauerkraut, or drink kombucha, which is a fermented drink. It's really powerful, even a bottle-sized kombucha. You can split that into 3 portions. A third of a portion, a third of a bottle every day is enough to really fill your gut up with those good bacteria. And for a little insurance, you might want to consider taking a probiotic supplement, but you want to look for ones that have at least 5 to 7 strains of different bacteria and at least 8 billion microorganisms. You can get up to 200 or more microorganisms, but that might actually blow you out and be a little overkill. So start with about 8 to 15 microorganisms. Yeah.
Okay, so the last thing we're going to talk about is the effects of blood sugar on fatigue. So unfortunately, in this Western world, we consume a standard American diet, which is abbreviated for SAD, which is just what it is. We start our breakfast with a high sugar cereal or coffee and a bagel from Tim Hortons. I never drank coffee until I came to Canada. It's like, what's this big hype? There's a coffee store on every corner. And I had something, oh my God, I can get so much work done. This is great. So let's have a look at the effects of blood sugar balance. So the top one, I hope you guys at the back can see, this is all about normal blood sugars. Well, actually, so the green line is the normal blood sugars. So if you start your breakfast off with maybe some pastries and stuff like that, or just fruit, or just a coffee, you're going to get a blood sugar spike. And that's going to go above that normal green line. And that's going to cause your pancreas to release a lot of insulin to process that glucose. And when we have too much glucose and the cell's going, okay, that's too much, I don't need any more, then where does that glucose go? It gets packaged in fat cells and actually helps to grow fat cells. It can also cause mental mood swings and brain fog. And then what comes up must come crashing down, and then it goes below the green line. And that's not when you want to go for the carrots and the hummus. That's when you want to go for the cookies and the chocolate, because right now you're crashing and you need something to get those blood sugars straight up. So you're going to have cravings, you're going to have fatigue, and you're going to have brain fog. Now, the problem is when your blood sugars drop, your body naturally produces that stress hormone cortisol to get your blood sugars back up again. So now you've got a double whammy where you're stressed and burnt out. And if you're skipping meals, or if you're having like a high refined carbs and sugar, then you're naturally producing all this extra cortisol on top of the cortisol you're naturally producing from stress. So if we look at the second one, we start our breakfast with some eggs, maybe a protein shake, get some of those vegetables in there like cucumber and spinach. I had one client, it's like, come on, let's try and put some spinach in those smoothies. And he's like, no way, Kylie, am I going to put that green crap in there? And then he spoke to his mum and she goes, I've been putting spinach in your smoothies for the last month and you haven't noticed. So you can get sneaky with your vegetables, right? So you're going to get a little rise, but it's going to stay in that green line. So you're going to have less insulin being released, you're going to have less fat storage, and you're going to have a steady mood and steady energy throughout the day. In fact, if you have unstable blood sugars, you have 3 times more difficulty losing weight. So of course, you're not going to have that big dip. So you're not going to have that extra cortisol being produced, and you're going to have less cravings, and you're going to be able to think clearly. So what symptoms of blood sugar imbalances? Now, I do this talk a lot with brain injury clients, and I feel like it just exacerbates a lot of those brain injury related problems. But you're going to have issues like poor concentration, irritability and aggression. You're going to have mood swings, poor memory, dizziness, fatigue, can't concentrate, insomnia, weight gain, depression, anxiety. There's even a thing called nocturnal hypoglycemia, where people don't eat enough during the day and then they can't sleep at night. And then when they find having a bowl of cereal or something at night before bed helps to offset that nocturnal hypoglycemia. So maybe if that's one of the issues that you're having with sleep, could be your blood sugars have been imbalanced, especially if you're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. That could be a cortisol thing, which is a big thing for perimenopausal women. Some of you might experience already, as do I, that it's just that waking up at 3 o'clock because of that extra cortisol. So what do we need to do to balance blood sugars? So first of all, as Joe was saying, we want to get that protein in the morning within 1 hour upon rising. So again, maybe doing overnight oats with chia seeds and flax seeds, those good fats which aren't going to spike blood sugars. Maybe even put a bit of protein powder in there. Doing some eggs and omelets. You can boil eggs and keep them in the fridge for 5 days. So if you're not that hungry, you can just, if you don't have the time to cook in the morning, just grabbing a couple of boiled eggs. You want to avoid the stimulants. So caffeine is really big one. Energy drinks, pop, coffee. I just had a client yesterday tell me he drinks 5 energy drinks a day. It's like, oh my God. You want to balance those meals out. So you want to have the protein, you want to have the complex carb, which is your legumes, your whole grains, your fruits and your vegetables, and you want to have your healthy fats. So make sure you're getting that olive oil, the walnut oil, flax oil, your seeds and nuts, and really sort of balance those meals out. You want to avoid sugar, and it's so hard because sugar is hidden in everything. Like if you go home and look at your ketchup bottle, it usually has water, sugar, and then tomatoes, and it's listed in priority. I see like icing sugar and peanut butter. It's just like it's hidden everywhere. And then it's hidden under lots of different names too, like maltose, sucralose, high fructose corn syrup. And also look at the portion sizing too, because when you get your cereal, it might say 1/3 of a cup is this much grams of sugar, but who eats 1/3 of a cup of cereal, right? And again, avoiding the refined refined grains, so the white rice, white pasta, white bread. It's refined because the fiber is taking out, and as Joe was saying, we need that fiber to balance the blood sugars, to feed our good bacteria, and to stabilize our blood sugars. So just to give you an idea, this is how you'd want your plates to look like, ideally at lunch and dinner. So you want to have half a plate of vegetables. So steamed, baked, or even a nice salad drizzling with that olive oil in. And like there's research to show that consuming 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil a day can reduce your risk of depression by 30%. So it's a really good thing to add into your diet on a regular basis. You want a quarter starch. So again, that's a sweet potato, the wild rice, quinoa, and then that quarter plate of protein. So your chicken, your steak, your fish. And that's the end of our presentation. So thank you so much. And thank you, Glixton.
Thank you.